If someone asks me, when was there a moment when I knew there was a God, I have to say there wasn't any moment like that, because my experience is that I always knew it. When we would play at home, we often played school, and I was always a sister. And I would be up on the third floor of our house, which was beastly hot in the summer, and this is when we'd have most time to play. And I would, drape myself in a blanket, because that's the only thing we had similar to a veil, and we would play school. Somehow, at some point, we had gotten a little desk that was available from a public school they were tearing down. So we had that school desk, and we had a lot of fun. But I always wanted to be a sister. And then when I can remember third grade, I got the idea I could go to Mass every day. And in those days, parents would let you go early in the morning. I'd go off for the 7:30 Mass, and I walked. It was about a mile, almost a mile, to the church. And so that was a practice that I started very early. And I always had this idea I was going to be a sister. And so as I grew up, that idea shaped who I was. And, there was never any big moment of, oh, God wants me to be a sister. I thought, God wants me to be a sister. And I used to pray as a little kid, please let the time go fast so I can be a sister. I mean, I was really, really big on this idea. And as I grew older then and went through school, this continued. And when I think of it, it was like an independent, this is what I was going to do. And my family knew that's what I was going to do, and nobody ever said, oh, well, now, don't you think maybe whatever? And I did everything, everything else that I could do in school. And added to this was when I was in the 8th grade, my father died, and my mother was a widow with 8 children. I was second oldest girl. And so all of that, plus being very active in school. I was a debater, I was in the orchestra, I was in the plays. There was this thing. And I do remember that in all of those experiences, being a sister was a focus. It was many years later that I began to think about how I got to be a Sister of Charity, because many sisters that I entered with had been taught by our sisters. They had been taught in high school. They had lots of great connections with our sisters and loved them. And so I began to muse on this puzzle. And this is what occurred to me, that my older brother had gone to a school taught by the Sisters of Charity. And he had a sister in 1st grade, whose name was Sister Macaria. I never met Sister Macaria when I was young, but her name was like, what would you say, in our family mythology or something, that, because my mother from time to time would mention Sister Macaria, and she would say what a great woman she was, what a good teacher she was, and just little things like that. Now, I also must put in here that my mother, although she knew I wanted to be a sister, never said, oh, why don't you be this kind of a sister? She just listened to me, put up with me. But anyhow, I began to remember that. Then I remembered that when I was in school, we went to school with a family of 3 kids whose mother had died when the 3rd child was born, and that little girl was born at what we used to call Rosalia Foundling and Maternity Hospital, run by the Sisters of Charity. And at the time of their mother's death, there was a sister there, one of our German sisters. We had about 5 sisters at one point who joined our community, who came from Germany. Her name was Sister Margreta. And they used to talk about Sister Margreta and how Sister Margreta always kept in touch with them after their mother died. And I had this very positive sense of Sister Margreta. Then when I went to high school, a girl came to our high school who had gone to the Sisters of Charity in grade school in another part of the city. And she and her grandmother had moved to our parish, and so she was now in high school, and we got to be good friends. And she could not stop talking about the Sisters of Charity who taught her in school. And she, by name, she would talk about them and tell you some good thing that they did for her and for her family or for whatever. So that's how I knew the Sisters of Charity. And what dawned on me as I got a little more mature and realized that our lives are not our own shaping, all of those Sisters of Charity whom I never met really shaped my vocation. And so when I thought about being a Sister of Charity, as I said, I don't know consciously where that question came from to my mother. But as a result, I had written to this cousin, and then I ended up going to a vocation retreat at Seton Hill, the September of my junior year in high school. And I had never been to Greensburg. I didn't know anything about Seton Hill. But when I got there, I felt like I'd always known Seton Hill, like I'd always known this place. And so I don't remember making a big decision either, just as I don't remember a big, God wants you to be a sister. I don't remember a big decision about where I wanted to spend my life as a sister. I was going to Seton Hill. So during that year, I kept in touch with the cousin of the cousins, and you know, from time to time, a letter or something, and if she was in the city, I'd go and see her. But I really knew very little about the sisters. I liked them, and I liked what I saw when I went to Seton Hill. So, when I was a senior in high school, I went to another vocation retreat, and during that vocation retreat, that would have been a year before I entered, I asked to be a member. We used to call it petitioning. And so you go to the Mother Superior and tell her you'd like to be a sister. And then that would start the process of entering. And I remember when she spoke to me, she said, "Well, now, dear, our life isn't difficult, but it's constant." And you know, as I've looked back on that, it was one of the best descriptions I ever had about our life. It's constant. It's not hard, but it is persistent, it is committed, and it takes everything. It takes your life. And so that's how I got to be a Sister of Charity. When I entered, as I said, it was like, this is, oh wow, this is what I want to be, this is what I want to do. And one time when I was serving in the dining room as a postulant, now this will give you a little clue about this kid that I was there, and I'm looking at all these sisters who were all faculty members at the college at the tables, and something came over me, and I thought, oh, I just came here. They've been here. But I felt so, I owned my presence there, I guess, so much that I kind of forgot that for a while. But I was a beginner, and from that beginning, then I entered into the life of the Sisters of Charity. And the very first night I entered, Sister Miriam Fidelis, who was our novice director, met with us. There were 28 sisters who entered with me. And she said, her first sentence was, "The spirit of the Sisters of Charity is humility, simplicity, and charity." And I remember thinking, oh, that's what I've seen. And so from the very beginning, I had this sense of yes to this community, to my identifying with it, and just wanting so much to be a Sister of Charity, and I've never stopped.